Hello, and welcome back to Pleasantview. And this, I guess you could call it an intermittent episode in between seasons. It's going to be a maintenance episode, basically. And it's going to be closing up things that are still unfinished from season 1 and beginning and preparing for season 2. And I also want to take the time in this episode to give you a proper neighborhood tour. Because even though I know this neighborhood like the back of my own hand, I understand that for you viewing this, it's not going to be as easy to know where everything is. And it might be interesting to know where everything is located in relation to each other. So I'm going to give you a proper one. And I'm also going to take the opportunity to make sure that I fix all the payments that are still pending. And I'm also going to build a total of 3 community lots. And closing up, I am also going to let you know a little bit about what I've got planned for season 2. So there are quite a few things that are going to change now that we're finished with the sort of introductory first season. And yeah, I'm excited to let you know. But let's start with the neighborhood tour. So I only think it stands to reason to begin in one entrance and exit to the hood and then finish up in the next one. So let's start over here with the trailers. So the first one in line, immediately when you come into town, is the Bruty household. And that is of course Sandy Bruty, Gordon King and their adopted daughter Jolie Bruty. Next to them we have the Day family. So that is Benjamin Day, previously Benjamin Long, and his wife Edith Day, and their 2 children, Matthew and Mary. Next we have the Broke family, and they live in Brandy's classical trailer. So we have Dustin, of course, and Meadow Broke, and their 2 children, and that is Luke and Adam. And moving up here to the condo district, we have this one at first, and that is the Cooper family. So that is Ivy Cooper and her daughter with Don Lothario, Hazel. And next we have the Tellerman family. So that is Chandler Tellerman and also LaShawn Cameron. And in this corner we have the Miguel family. That is Amin Miguel and Jessica Miguel, his wife, previously Jessica Ebadi. And then we have Jessica's daughter, Valerie, and then their son together, Kian. And then up here we have the Cormier family. So that is Andrea Cormier and Jason Cormier, previously Jason Menon. And we have Andrea's son, who she has with Abhijit Bertino, and that is Nassim. And then we also have their daughter, Irene. Up here in Don Lothario's previous home is the Miguel family. So that is Sophie Miguel, Amin's daughter, and her fiancé, Lauren Lillard. I think we go right here, and then we can come back. So this house, let's just turn around to see the front of it. So this is the Caliente condo, and Nina Caliente is still living here, with Don Lothario, of course. And we have Don's twins, Dismas and Daphne Lothario. And we also have Nina and Don's son, Nero, living here together with them. Then we have this house that was previously housing the Lillard family. And coming up here, we have this apartment lot. And this is where the Langerak family and the Cormier family lives. So we have Kaylin Langerak living here together with her 2 daughters, Natalia and Irina. And then we also have Ricky Cormier and Phoenix Gibson living in the next door apartment. And then finally up here, past the hospital, and one of the lots that you will see me build soon is the nursing home. And this is where you will find Abhijit Bertino and also Makoto St. Julian. So let's move down a little bit again. So let's go back all this way. And let's turn left here instead. And we have these little starter homes. So first in line we have the Hamilton family. And that is of course Ophelia and Johnson. And yeah, that's of course Ophelia Nigmus originally, but she's married to Johnson Hamilton. And we have also Lilith Vicious here together with her newly born daughter Hope. And we also have the couple's son Aramis. Next to them we have the Love family, and that is the police officers. So we have Ramin Sentowski and Demi Love. And at the end of the line we have the Bertino family. So that is Orlando Bertino and Lucy Bertino, previously Lucy Burb, and their daughter Phoebe. Continuing down, we have this house, and that is the Lillard family. So that is Randy Lillard and Tosha Lillard, previously Tosha Tellerman. And we have their 2 children as well. So that is Erin and Tomwe. And just following this path up here, and this is the district that's going to be a lot of these smaller houses close to the ocean. That's more geared towards elders who wants to have a smaller home. And we already have the Lillards here. And that is of course Brandy and Brandon, who have moved here instead from the bigger house we saw previously. And then going back, let's make another turn. We have the Burb family. And that is of course John Verb and Brandy Burb, previously Brandy Broke, and their 2 children, and that is Poppy and Will. And then here we have the Tellerman family. So that is Comey and Jan Tellerman. And then going down here, we have the Landgrab mansion. And of course we have Malcolm Landgrab and his wife Dina, previously Dina Caliente. And we have their twins living here still. So that is Archie and Alba Landgrab. And then here we have the Pleasant family. So that is Daniel and Mary Sue, of course, and Angela. And right next to them we have the other Pleasant family, and that is Jennifer Pleasant, who lives alone. And opposite them we have the Goth family. So there's quite a few of them now. We have Darren Goth and Cassandra, and we have their 2 children, Hecuba and Hector. We also have Bella and her daughter Jocasta, and that is her daughter with Don Lothario. And we also have Alexander Goth living here, and he has very recently turned into an adult. And then here we have the Brunig family. So that is of course Marilina and Joe Brunig and their 3 children, and that is Laurent, Nico and Cecily. And here we have the Bendett family. So that is Grayson and Marissa Bendett and their son Hugo. And up here we have the Cox family. So that is Kennedy and Kaylin Cox. And we have their 3 children. So that is Nathan, Amelia and Vanessa. And next we have the Stratton family. And there's quite a few of them. So that is Remington and Christy Stratton and that's of course Remington Harris from the start. So they have 4 children right now. So that is Hallie, Lydia, Laura, and Micah. Going down here, we have the Corker family, and that is recently married Dorian and Marsha Corker, and that is of course Marsha Brunig from the start. And opposite them we have the Dreamer family, and that is Dirk and Chloe Dreamer, and that is Chloe Lillard from the start. And we have their son Jacob. Alright, so that is everyone in this area down here. So then we only have the ones living up here. So we have some students. So we have the Bachelor family, and that consists of Gabriel Bachelor, Mike Newby, and Zachary Lillard. And we also have the Tellerman family, and that is Christopher Tellerman and his girlfriend Adriana Sang. And then going back down here, we have the apartments. So we have the Fancy family, and that is Melissa Fancy and Goopy Gilles Carbo, and their 2 children, Jason and Althea. And then we also have the Newby family, and that is Bo Newby and Brittany Tellerman, and they are roommates. And then we have this apartment complex. So we have the Doe family, and that is Lily Doe, Iris Cooper, and a very new addition, Lucy Hanby. We have the Bertino family, and that is Oliver Bertino. We have the Lillard family, Danielle Lillard and her daughter Simone, who she has with Goopy Gilles Carbo. And then we have the Strattons, so that is Alvin Stratton, Russ Bear, and their son Ryan Bear. And that is everyone who's currently playable in my Pleasantview. So there's quite a few characters really, and you've now met all of them, so I'm very impressed that you're still here. So counting all of the households, I get it to 37, and in total we've had 41 episodes, and that is of course because some of the families we've played 2 episodes because they've had like active jobs to get back to. And in total, counting all the Sims, there are 75. So you've met 75 Sims through these 41 episodes. And I think that that is definitely very impressive. And it's soon to be 76, of course, after I move in Elizabeth Monif as well, together with her boyfriend Ramin Sentowski. But that's going to come up for season 2. So as you might have noticed while I did the hood tour, I have also gone ahead already and added the 3 community lots that I'm going to build. So I'm going to add those speed builds into this video, but I think that it's good to just go through that as well. So let's start down here and continuing the hood tour with all the community lots as well. So we have the cemetery down here. We have the church. We have Woodland Park. And here we have the daycare center, the elementary school. We have 290 Main Street, the food store and the GameStop. We have 330 Main Street, the clothing store and cafe. We have the Woodland soccer field. Going up this way, we have Trattoria di Carbo, Goopy Gilles Carbo's restaurant. And we have King's Dry Cleaners, Gordon King's very shady business. And then going up here, this is one of the community lots that I will be building, and that is the Goth Laboratories. So this is the science facility that I have been hinting that I would be building eventually. So this is going to be owned by the Goth family. And then going back down here, we have the Pleasantview Health Center. So that is the huge pool lot that you get from the base game, but very much renovated. We have Studio Caliente, Eclectic Electronics, and that is Dirk Dreamer's very, very small business. He only has a shed right now with all his electronics, but I'm sure that with his business mind, he's going to get much more profitable eventually. Next to that, we have another new addition, and that is the Daily View. And that is something that I have hinted that I will be adding on as well. That is the Pleasantview newspaper. So this slot is going to be owned by Danielle Lillard. We have also Landgrab Industries. And here we have the Pleasantview High School. Here is the Pleasantview Public Library. We have 2 empty community lots right now, and I haven't had any idea at all what I would build on these lots, only that I wanted to have some sort of community lots here. I've toyed around with a lot of ideas through the months, but I think that I finally landed on what I'm going to do. And I decided to make community lot 46 into a pub. So it's going to be somewhere where the neighbors can grab a few drinks and someplace with a stage as well, so that the young musical talents, as well as possibly the stand-up comedians in the neighborhood, can have a stage to perform on. And then I have decided that community lot 45 is going to be a town square, or some sort of park that's connected to the town hall. And I think that possibly this is going to be owned by the person who is in charge of the town hall, which is currently Marissa Bendette. And I think that this could be used as like public events and such things. So it's going to be some sort of a town square, really, not very much on it, and then have the opportunity to add on things as the season goes by, sort of. Next we have the hospital, of course. And then we have the final community lot that I will be building, and that is the Pleasantview police station. So this is of course going to be owned by Dorian Cocker as the police chief. And that's all of the community lots as well. So let's move on to the speed builds. So first in line we have the police station, and I just named it Pleasantview Police Station. It doesn't need to have any more specific name like that. And starting off, we start with the parking lot, and that's actually the easiest way to start off these kinds of buildings, I think, because that allows me to lay out the whole lot, like where everything goes, because I always know that I want to have parking space, and then once I have figured out where to put it, then I can figure out all of the other layouty things. And then I also wanted to have somewhere for the police cars to drive in, and that needed to be pretty inaccessible to most civilians. So I put in this wired fence to keep people out. Of course you can still access it if you want to, but it's a little bit more difficult. So I also put in some decorative police car statues in the corner there to make it look more like an actual police station. And then I wanted it to be a pretty flat roof, but I also wanted to have something to decorate it a little bit. And I had these fences that are like roof trims, or what to call it, and they had a nice blue color. And originally I was actually after something a bit more dark blue, but once I saw this, I think it was good enough. and it gave it a little different vibe than I had thought that I would have originally, but I think this fits in quite well actually, so I went with it anyway. And then in general, I tried to keep the windows most places pretty small because, yeah, if you have people who have committed crimes visiting this building, they shouldn't have too easy of time to break out of the building. That was what I had in mind. So yeah, you see these little windows up front, and those are the ones that I'm going to use at back as well. So I am also working with the floors here, trying to figure out like the general layout of the building itself, and I wanted to have the entrance be pretty open. So I actually made a little balcony up there that you can I envision the police officers working here, standing there and looking down at the visitors every now and then, like getting an easy access to an overview. And then you can see that I put in an elevator. Originally I had thought that the visitors would be able to visit the upstairs, but I changed my mind later, so that will not be there eventually. And yeah, here you see that I changed my mind also about how the police officers will enter the building, and I figured that if they have a burglar or something with them, or a drunkard or anything like that, someone who needs to just sleep off being drunk, that they need to put in a cell, then they would access those cells with this back entrance where the police cars will actually go, and then the visiting parking lot will be up front. And then I realized that I actually wanted to have a cellar in this building as well. And not really a cellar to keep criminals, but rather a cellar for the gym. Because when I play this slot, I want the police officers to be able to work out. And that will be part of their daily routine. So that they are up to shape and keep up their exercise, so that they can catch the criminals if they run away or whatever. And I fiddled around a little bit with the windows here, because I definitely wanted to have some daylight coming in as well, so that it's not so closed off. Windows allows it to breathe a little bit, if you could say that. And I had a little bit of trouble to put in floor tiles above this, because once I had created it, just above that empty space, the floor tiles didn't want to be put down, so I actually had to go in and flatten the ground temporarily, and then I could put down the floor tiles and be done with it. And here you see I'm working a little bit with the access to the cellar, and I quickly realized that the staircase doesn't fit. So I actually made the cellar a little bit smaller instead. I don't think that I needed to have that big a space just for a gym. So yeah, I reduced the space, and then I created the downstairs, the downwards staircase in that separate room. And then I struggled a little bit with the staircases themselves, because I didn't really like those railings. I didn't think that they looked that good. So I actually ended up going just without railings altogether. And the police officers will just have to balance when they go downstairs. I suppose that's part of their training, to just walk down the stairs without railings. Yeah, that's just how it went. Yep, and then I'm putting in also shower rooms down here, because I think it makes sense that the police officers of course need to be able to have a shower after they have worked out. And I separated it by gender, because I suppose that the police officers don't want to get naked in front of each other. Yeah, and then we also have some huge mirrors down here. I think it's good to have that in gyms, especially because when you work out on the equipment, it's good to be able to check your form. And I also managed to squeeze in some treadmills, so there's quite a lot of training equipment here, but I think that they will all be accessible. That's something that I'll have to try out once I start playing with a lot. But yeah, I mean, the Sims 2 routing, I keep repeating myself, but it's actually quite amazing what you can do. So yeah, the gym is finished and I'm moving on to the upstairs. So I need another staircase to access the second floor, and as I mentioned, I removed the elevator, so it will only be the police officers who will be able to access the second floor and up. Yeah, again, there's no railing on the staircase, so they'll have to balance. And then I struggled a little bit again with the layout of this space. At first I wanted to have like a huge lunch room down here, but then I realized that I just created a long corridor that didn't really have any use, and I really dislike having just empty space that you can't use for anything. So I made a little snake shape instead and put in some rooms where you can interrogate the criminals. And here you see I put down the small windows that I mentioned. So looking at the walls, I wanted them to be pretty sterile, and I have these sort of tiled ones, I guess. And I went with that throughout the building, and I think that that actually makes it look very formal, very like no funny business. And yeah, I combined it with some wallpaper as well to soften up some of the rooms at least. And then, yeah, I have this entrance. At first I thought that I would have like a small bathroom of some sort, but then I changed my mind and actually decided to put in a third floor, because I realized that I didn't have any room for Dorian Corker's office, and I also wanted him to have like this very high up tower where he could sit and supervise the neighborhood if he wanted to. Like the police officer has this overview over the neighborhood, and especially in the direction of the commercial district. Like you can very easily stand in these windows and look out over like the food store and clothing store and those kinds of lots. So I think that actually added a little bit of story to it as well. And also I made it a pretty modern building as well. I mean, I can definitely imagine this being an old building from the start that has been renovated immensely. So we have a lot of these like huge windows as well, and especially in the spaces where the police officers will be working, we have a lot of glass doors as well. I really like that modern style. I guess you have noticed by now if you've seen my buildings previous to this. Right, so this is the entrance where the visitors of the lot will come in. And we need to have a reception desk, of course, and the visitors should not be able to walk past the reception desk and into the back area. So I completely fenced it off with that counter. So I have a computer desk there where the receptionist can sit and work, but then also like just a desk where someone can come and check in. I actually made a separate room for passports photography with a camera. So I think that in future, if I am going to add any vacation hoods to this hood, which I mean I would love to have that, but I guess you know me by now. You know that I would want to renovate all of the lots if I added it, which would be a huge project, but it would be amazing to have it. So my idea is that if I add that, I probably will. I won't be able to resist. But yeah, so let's say when I add it, I want this to be like a workable passport operation, that the Sims who are going abroad can purchase a passport, and they will come to the police station and have their passport picture taken, and then pay a fee to the police station for getting the passport, basically. So that adds a little bit of gameplay into it as well. And here you can see that I add in some cells, and they're just meant to be holding cells. So I contemplated putting in a toilet, but I decided against it actually. I just think that the criminals in here, if they needed to use the bathroom, they should just be able to like call the police officers over, and then they will handcuff them and bring them out to the bathroom up front, or something like that. I think that makes more sense. So yeah, I did it that way. So they only have beds right now, and I think that's enough. I might change my mind later, but then I can adjust it. Right, so this is the bathroom, and I just made it a blue color to portray it being a police station. I think that the color blue really speaks for a police station. I mean, looking at pictures of police stations from countries all over the world, the color scheme is always blue and white, and it's pretty interesting actually. That's the case, but yeah, at least most places seems to have it like that. Alright, so we're moving on to the upstairs area, and this is going to be the office space for the police officers. And this is going to be cubicles. In many of the other community lots that I have worked with to have playable careers, I have had pretty open-spaced offices, but this is going to be cubicles. And yeah, I actually like how this turned out. In the top left corner we have one cubicle that's a little bit bigger, and I imagine that that might be like one of the higher-ups cubicles. So in this case it would be, I guess Demi Love is the police officers in the highest position, so it would be her cubicle. And I didn't really personalize the cubicles too much right now, because I don't really know exactly where everyone will sit, so I held off with most of the decoration. And I just put in like stationery and the printer and things. And yeah, also needed to get those case files, or what it's called, in the correct position. And it turned out that the OMSP number 2 was the correct height, so the perfect height. So that's what I put in there. Yeah, and then just some generic wall decoration for the cubicles, but yeah, I imagine that once I start playing with this lot, I might put something that has to do with dogs in Ramen Santowski's cubicle, for example, and yeah, maybe some sports decoration for Sophie Miguel. Yeah, stuff like that, that will personalize it a little bit. And here we have the cafeteria, where the police officers will have their lunch, and yeah, these guys will, like so many others, just eat TV dinners, I think, mostly. So they're gonna be pretty reliant on microwaves. So what I decided to do on this lot was actually to put in the microwaves on shelves. And the way to do that is, of course, to just put in the shelves, but you're not going to put the microwaves on the shelves themselves. You're going to put down these OMSPs for food preparation, and that will allow you to put the microwaves on those. And then you need to put those OMSPs onto other like shiftable OMSPs to get them level. And you have to be very careful about like clicking on this, because if you click like accidentally click on the wrong OMSP, it's going to become pretty messy pretty quickly. So I struggled a little bit with that. Yeah, as you can see, I clicked so many times and I tried to get to the green OMSP, but you really have to nail it, click on the exact right spot. Eventually I got the hang of it, I think. Yeah, so these are going to be usable even though they are elevated, and that's just because The Sims 2 is such an amazing game and it will allow you to do crazy things like that. I really love that. Yeah, my first idea was to put in some big cabinet in the corner, but it turned out that they were huge, the ones that I had, so I changed my mind. And I instead put in just like a corner piece there, and then just a sink in the corner. I thought that worked pretty well. And then, of course, I had some empty counter space for other stuff, and also the coffee machines, of course. That's also going to be very needed in a place like this. And yeah, they are also put on OMSP with the same technique, so that you can fit more of them onto the same counter. And then I just use these counter level OMSPs for all of the decorations. So a bunch of coffee cups and a glass and just a fruit bowl. Something to make it a little bit more lived in, I guess. And then I also wanted to put in some paintings as well, just to make the walls seem less flat. I think that in general, decorations on the walls adds a lot of life to the building and makes it seem a lot more lived in and used. And yeah, like I said, a lot less flat. And I found these really nice modern paintings to add to this building. I think that modern paintings really works well in this space. So moving up to the top floor, we have Dorian's office. And if you saw my episode with Dorian Cocker, you know that he is pretty lazy at this point. He don't really worry about the criminal activity in Pleasantview. He thinks that this is such a calm and rural area, like there's just families living here, people who want to just have a calm life and carefree. And yeah, he's been working pretty hard to get to the highest position, but now that he sits at the top of this career in Pleasantview, he doesn't really have any ambitions to change anything and to work too hard. So this is basically where Dorian is going to like sit with people in meetings and just look busy, but he's not really going to do a lot, I think. Yeah. So I bet that there will be a lot of younger police officers coming up to his office and being pretty frustrated with him. We'll have to see what happens. But then again, we also have his right hand, Demi Love, who secretly wants to become a criminal mastermind. So she might also have very special ways of solving different situations. Right. And I also put in a scene blender and a visitor controller so that I can adjust who can visit this lot and also summon in the police officers when I want to start playing with it. So this is the finished building, of course, from an upside point of view. And I'm pretty happy actually with how it turned out. I think it will be a lot of fun to start playing in this lot. All right, so with the police station finished, we are going to move on to the next lot, and that is going to be this one, and that is the Daily View. So that is going to be the Pleasantview newspaper, like the newspaper that you see arriving with a mail carrier in the morning. That is going to be the newspaper that these guys are going to be working on. So it's a pretty small lot, and I thought it made sense to have it in quite of the center of town. And I wanted to have like the similar vibe to the high school that's opposite it. So I'm using the same kind of brick tone for it, and yeah, a little bit more like an old building kind of vibe, an old building that has been freshened up a bit. So yeah, it's not very big, but it turns out that this business don't need a lot of space, I think. And even as the business grows, I don't think that the reporters are going to use up a lot of this space, because the only thing that they can do really is work on articles on their computers and then possibly like have some people over for interviews. But otherwise, I think that as for gameplay with reporters in Pleasantview, it's going to be like summon them to other lots when I play other families and have them conduct interviews with the people where like the intrigue is going on, that kind of thing. So yeah, when they are actually here, I think it's going to be more work on the articles. So layout-wise, we have one room that's like the entrance. We have one room that's the office space for most reporters. We have an office for Danielle. We have a small bathroom, and then like a lunchroom as well. And that's basically it. And that's just what we need really for these kinds of careers. So Danielle's room has a closable doors, but the other rooms have these arches that just allows easy access really. So I put in a lot of nice decoration here, and I had these nice stacks of books and also stacks of newspapers. That's going to add a lot of immersion, I think, to it. So a lot of cluttering in this place. And as for color scheme, I really wanted it to be pretty muted and a little bit dark and soft, like a little bit of a library vibe to it, or a bookstore vibe, but yeah, of course, it's a newspaper. And yeah, also bike racks, of course, because yeah, it needs to be pretty accessible even if you don't use a car, I thought. so that's nice. And I also imagine that the newspaper deliverers might like use bikes because I assume that the reporters are creating the newspapers here, and then the work is sent to the printers, and then the printers deliver the newspapers here, and then in the morning the carriers, the teenagers who work with delivering the newspapers, come to this office and picks that day's newspapers up and then go on bike throughout the neighborhood, basically. That's the way I imagine it. And so this corner to the right is where they would pick up that day's newspapers, basically. So this space is mainly just decorative, really, and it might also work as a sort of waiting room for any people who want to like be interviewed or something like that. And yeah, it's meant to be a little bit homely as well, because this is a pretty small newspaper, really. It's not that large, it's not that many people who are going to work on it, so it's meant to be a bit homely as well. So I liked adding in some details like the coat hanger and the clock on the wall and yeah, things like that. And it's pretty funny actually with these plants, because in this building I thought that it was so difficult to find a plant that was pretty high, but that was also small enough to squeeze into that corner in the bathroom. So I was a bit frustrated with how big the plants were, but in the final lot that I'm going to build, I'm going to be frustrated by how small they are. So it really depends on what size of lot you're working on, I think. That's pretty funny. Right, so this is the office space, and I put in 4 desks. So right now we could have 4 reporters, and yeah, we're not gonna have that to start off, but it's good to be able to expand the business a bit, I think. I might consider having like 3 reporters and 1 photographer or something like that. Might be nice. We'll have to see what we can come up with. So yeah, putting in a lot of clutter here again, I think that adds a lot to it. And also these desk lamps as well. And putting lights on OMSPs is one of my favorite things to do, actually, because if you turn snapping to grid off, you can really put in like a lot of stuff and clutter on that desk and still have a proper light. So that's what I usually do, actually. And those green OMSPs are pretty good to use for lights, especially, I think. So this is Danielle's office, and yeah, this is where she will hold the interviews as well, if there are anyone who comes here. And she has a private room to have like meetings and things away from the other reporters. And yeah, some chairs for her visitors to sit in as well. I think it's good. So here we are in the lunch room, and similar to the police station, these guys are going to be pretty reliant on microwaves, I think. But as for now, I only put in 1. I think that is going to be enough to start off at least. But of course, I always have the option to put in shelves and put them on shelves instead if I find out that I need more. So that's very nice, actually, to have that possibility. So yeah, I can also actually see Danielle bringing lunch with her every now and then to serve to her workers, like home-cooked meals. Maybe not cooked by herself, maybe her sister helped out, something like that. I can totally see that happening in a place like this. That's more like, it seems a little bit like a family business, really, like by the looks of it, but it's not. But it's like that, it got that family vibe to it. And again, putting in a lot of nice decorative pictures and things on the walls really adds to the feeling of it in this house as well. Even in small spaces like this, it's pretty important to put in things like that to make it more like, yeah, a lot less flat, as I mentioned. And in this case, it actually worked a lot better to put the lamp itself on the table and then the decoration on an OMSP. So sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And yeah, I'm putting in the finishing touches. I have that visitor controller and the sim blender as well to use. Again, for restricting who can be here and to summon in the workers. So this is the finished house. and I'm excited to start playing with this as well. So then with the daily view finished, we only have one community lot left, and that is going to be this huge one in the corner, and that is Goth Laboratories. So, the backstory for this lot is that this has been owned by the Goth family for generations. And I think actually that it was Victor Goth from the start, who was one of the founders of Pleasantview, who started up this business to start off. And it has gone from son to son through the generations and eventually ended up with Mortimer. And both Mortimer and Bella were working here from the start. So I wanted to create something that was pretty similar to the looks of the science facility in The Sims 3. And that one has something like a greenhouse, I suppose, but with a domed ceiling. And I wanted to create something similar to that because, I thought it would be pretty fun. So I started out with making this octagonal shape and then putting in these fences. I experimented a little bit with the patterns because I wanted it to be pretty nice looking, but it also had to let in quite a lot of sunlight. So I went with this pattern, and before I started to mess around with it, I put in invisible floor tiles to make sure that it was actually a complete roof, so we didn't get the rain into this space. And then pretty important to point out that I saved before I started to mess around with the constrained floor elevation sheet, but that is what I started to do now. So I am elevating ever so slowly the ground below the roof in order to elevate it, and ever so slowly trying to create a domed shape. And I started out with just experimenting with clicking in different sections. I knew, of course, that I wanted to have in the middle like 4 tiles that were the highest point of it, and then like having a descending shape moving down. But it also had to be pretty high, so just clicking around and trying stuff out, I kept looking at this and just thought that it was too low, really. It needed to be pretty high to create that same feeling as it was in The Sims 3. So I started by going in one of the corners and trying to make that corner look perfect. And ever so slowly it started to get better and better, and here is around the time that I realized that I would have to have a pretty high shape for it to work. And here you can see that's quite a big difference from the start. So this is what I did. I just kept working with clicking every now and then, ever so slowly, creating section by section. And then just trying to even things out as best as I could to make sure that it was like the same elevation all around in all of the different corners, so that it actually became a nice looking dome and not that chaotic looking. And it was pretty difficult actually to keep track of everything, so I had to circle around the building quite a lot in order to make sure that the elevations were even. So, but it was pretty fun actually. I don't think I've ever done anything like this before. The most similar thing I've done, I think, is arched bridges. That has the same sort of technique for it, but I don't think I've ever done anything like like this. I think, actually, thinking back to it, I think that I experimented a little bit with this technique when I was going to make that Hobbit hole Halloween special that I did, but in the end I couldn't figure it out because I also wanted to make a basement, so for that lot it was too complicated for me to riddle out. But I think that this kind of building is sort of the perfect thing to use it for, because you basically just want to use this to shape the roof, and then you can have a just flat wall below it. So that worked out pretty well, I think. So it was a good thing to start with, and now that I know sort of how to work with it, I can use it for other things as well. So yeah, I recommend if you want to try this out to start with something like this and just try and see what happens. So here you can see me just go around and evening things out, trying to iron out any kind of imperfections to make sure that it is even all of the way around. I think that I made it pretty good. It might not be exactly perfect, but I think it's good enough. And then, as you notice, I save a lot so that I don't lose any progress when I do new stuff. So here you can see me starting to flatten the ground, and that is of course after turning off the sheet. Very, very important that you turn off the sheet before you flatten the ground, because otherwise you will lose all the progress that you just did. Right, so I started out by trying to work with walls, and the walls didn't allow me to flatten the ground below it. And it also didn't allow me to put the wall back again if I removed it after I had flattened the ground. So I ended up going with greenhouse walls for the straight areas. And since the greenhouse walls won't allow you to put in diagonal walls, I ended up going with fences for the diagonals. So that's the way I did that, and I think it actually turned out quite nice, so I'm happy with how it turned out. Right, so with that done, I moved on to the rest of the building, and it's going to be a pretty huge one, but I mean, seeing as it's a science lab, it makes sense that it is pretty huge. And I also knew that I wanted to have some sort of tower somewhere that's going to be like the highest point where the scientists would stargaze, have telescopes. So I actually ended up putting that in the left corner of the building because I didn't want to block the view for the greenhouse. I'm going to go ahead and call it a greenhouse now. I guess a domed greenhouse. That's what it is. Yeah, so that's what I did there. And here I just created like a small rectangular pond, and there are 3 fountains in it, so it's going to be pretty decorative. And I went ahead and put down a lot of flowers around it, but those are from the buy catalog, so they're not going to need tending. And then we have a lot of these bushes as well, but these are so-called plastic bushes. I think they're from Mod The Sims, so they're not going to need tending either. So that's a plus, really. I don't want the scientists to spend time on tending these flowers. They have enough other things on their hands to do so. Right, and I have these huge, beautiful windows, and most of them are part of the Tokyo set. I really, really love that set. It's amazing for making modern builds. I think it's from the Sims resource. It's a really beautiful set. Right, and here you can see me putting in a greenhouse roof for this tower, and that's because I want, of course, the scientists to be able to stargaze through that roof up, like straight up into the sky. That made sense to me, so that changed a little bit how the entire building looked as well, and I really enjoyed that. So here I'm starting out with the greenhouse, and I decided on going with pretty exotic plants that I wouldn't use normally in the climate for Pleasantview. Like when they start up Pleasantview in just vanilla The Sims, of course there are palm trees, but I don't think that makes sense really for the climate that they're in, that there would be palm trees growing, so that's something that I have removed basically as soon as I started playing this. Yeah, it doesn't make much sense to me. But I really enjoyed, for that reason, having the scientists have this greenhouse where you can have those kinds of plants, because yeah, that adds on to it, like the exotic feeling of it, that this is the only place in Pleasantview where things like that can grow. And I actually also put in these fruit trees that have lemons and oranges, because I imagine that, like, in the climate that Pleasantview is in, you would be able to have apple trees, but for oranges and lemons it would be too cold, so it would make sense to have it like in here. And then I also start up with the general layout for like where every room in the building is going to go. And they're going to be pretty huge rooms, really. But yeah, as I mentioned, I think that makes sense for a science lab. And yeah, in the tower, I actually decided that this is going to be where the Goths will have their own private business offices. And I also wanted to make a sneaky, like, hidden staircase up to the top of the tower, because I imagined that, like, the backstory for this building after Bella and Mortimer took it over, because both of them were working in science, and they were scientists and they worked together in this facility. And I think that they were pretty famous as well. They got a lot of nice discoveries and things done, and I think that they wrote a lot of, like, work and things. So they were working together in this building, and they had this tower part that was just theirs. No one could access them when they were up there. People could still, like, visit them in their office, of course, but then they would spend most of their time in their own private section of this facility, where they couldn't be bothered. And then they were working together. And then, of course, that would be extra devastating after Bella was abducted, because not only would Mortimer lose his wife, he would also actually lose his partner that he was working with. And I think that after she disappeared, things really became far less maintained here. I think that Mortimer was pretty depressed, actually, after she disappeared, and ended up not coming over here a lot and leaving the facility to the scientists who were working here. So yeah, the idea is that this is going to be in disuse, and it has just been, like, leased to some other company while Alexander was growing up. But now that he has become an adult, he will get back to this facility and start it up again, and we'll see what we can come up with. So, as you might have noticed as I'm rambling, that I have actually created these small rooms that's like little clinical rooms where you will wash your hands and put on your lab coat and make sure that you are completely clean before you enter these laboratories. And that's something that I have seen in real life once, like, visiting these kinds of locations, that that's usually what you have in order to make sure that you don't get any dirt or anything into these very clinical spaces. So that's what the scientists will have to do before they enter here, always wash their hands. And in this room that we're working on right now, I wanted to make something pretty similar to The Sims 4, actually. I'm not a big fan of The Sims 4. I don't really play it at all, but when it was still new, I did play it, and I actually really enjoyed Get to Work. That was a really fun expansion pack, I think. I mean, if I ever would go back to The Sims 4 in future and play it, it would only be to play Get to Work, I think, because I really enjoyed especially the science career in that, because it was so much fun to progress in that career and actually get to play at work with The Sims. So I wanted to incorporate something similar to that in this building. And I ended up going with, well, the science stations for one thing, that they can create viruses or medicine, that can be sold, of course. And they also can create robots. And since I have that mod that makes the robot station science instead of tinkering, I think it makes a lot of sense as well to have that. But I also wanted to put in some places for Sims to work with plants as well, because that was also part of, like, the career in The Sims 4. And yeah, I have this nice, like, slacker career, I think it is, planting stations that I can use, and of course the fruit trees. And then, I mean, it's also possible to add in like just planted pots, like yeah, something like that, to just have that sort of gardening part of it as well. And at one point I contemplated putting in a cow plant as well, but In the end, I decided against it because I just felt like after this many years of disuse, or like having it leased to some other company, it doesn't really make sense that there would be an alive and thriving cow plant out here. I think that could be something to add for the future eventually, if I think that they have earned it or like it makes sense with the story. But for now, I don't have it. Right. So I wanted to put in something decorative, like some sort of statue in this entrance hall that has to do with science. I ended up going with a suit of armor, a really huge one, and that's not really that sciencey. But I mean, when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense for the Goth family, right? I mean, what other family is so obsessed with chess, right? So I think it's a little bit gimmicky, but I think it would make sense for the Goths to have something eccentric like that in the entrance hall to their science facility. Definitely. So that's why I put in that huge suit of armor, and that just signifies, like, yeah, the eccentric part of being a Goth, really. Yeah, so that's what we have in there. The first thing you see when you come in. Right. And then I'm putting in like more plants into this greenhouse, and also a Zen garden. I think that suited that in-between space pretty well. More for the looks rather than like using it, I think. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And this huge base, I only have the, don't remember what it's called, but that huge exercise thingy that the Sims can spin around in. And I also wanted to put in some sort of like supervising station that you can observe Sims in. And I actually don't know if I'm going to use it, but it's pretty decorative right now, and I didn't put a lot of stuff into that room. But I imagine that is some kind of like quarantine room where you can like study what happens when the Sims spin around in it, because if you have used it and know a little bit about it, you know that there's a very, very, very slight chance of the Sims getting abducted using that. And I think that the scientists would be really, really interested in what goes on in there, and like why would the aliens be able to abduct people using that device. So I think that is what they are investigating with that, or well, what they were investigating, that is, while Mortimer and Bella were still working here. So that is something that Alexander might pick up. I don't know really how to go about it. Right, and this is the office for the Goths, and this is sort of like where they will receive guests. And yeah, again, seeing as it's the Goths, I wanted to make it pretty eccentric, and it ended up becoming a little bit like the lair of a Bond villain. But I really like that vibe for the Goths, really. So we have these concrete walls and then these really, really fancy curtains. At first I wanted to put in like that picture of Bella, but I ended up going with just these small picture frames. I thought that looked a lot better. And we have this really, really fancy sofas where they can sit and like have a drink or something with their guests, I guess. Makes sense for the Goths. And then like just a little space to have meetings, really. And then, here I contemplated putting in a gym as well, just to have something in that corner, but I decided against it, mainly because I didn't want to fiddle around again with the bathroom. Right, and here I am having a camera view look around at the roof to make sure that it seems plausible that I would be able to put in the telescopes here. And it turns out that at community lots, the telescopes aren't available. So I wasn't able to put them in, unfortunately. My guess is that they aren't available because you don't want to risk the Sims getting abducted on a community lot. That is why the only thing I can think of why they wouldn't be available. But yeah, so I guess I will have to put them in Alexander's inventory before he goes to this lot the first time, to make sure that he actually has the telescopes. so I'll just pretend that they were here from the start, really. So I think that there will be 2 of them here, one for Bella and one for Mortimer, basically. Yeah. So yeah, there's also like a little snake in the corner. So I guess that terrarium has been empty for quite a while, but yeah, after Alexander got this started up again, he got his own snake as well, just for like remembering his parents having a snake, I guess. Makes sense. Again, the eccentricities of the Goths. Is that even a word? Yeah. Now it is, I guess. I made it one. Right, and here we have all the lights, and lighting up a space like this is pretty intense because you need a lot of lights, and the lights need to be pretty bright. But yeah, it's a lot of fun to work around with it as well. At first I was contemplating putting in red lights in the greenhouse, but yeah, it just became a bit too strange, I think. So I went with just normal lights for that as well. And yeah, also lighting up the outside area is a challenge when you have large spaces like this. So yeah, but I think I managed it in the end. And yeah, as you can see, this is just basically a huge empty room, but I might do something else with it, or like decorate it a bit more once I start working with it. I think that's going to make sense. Right, and yeah, the office is also pretty sparse actually. There's a lot of empty space, and I think that like the same colored walls really adds to it. But I mean, it suits a science facility, I think, to have this much empty space. I can't imagine how expensive it is to heat this place up though, and what with all the electricity. I mean, yeah. It must be really, really expensive to have a business like this going on. But hey, they're the Goths and this is The Sims, so I guess it makes sense. Alright, so we're getting to the just looking at everything that is built, and this is an overview of it. So this is the cafeteria and just the office spaces as well. We have solar panels as well, which is going to help a little bit with the electric bills, I think. Alright then, so with everything built that I want to have built in preparation for season 2, I think we can move on to the payment. And this is basically maintaining what I have missed doing previously. The idea is that I should have the families pay off their fees that they owe as I play them, but I have forgotten to do it. I think it's difficult to remember usually when playing, but adding on to recording episodes as well, it gets even more difficult for me at least to remember that. So I'm going to do it now. And yeah, looking at all of these things, we have the schedule, first of all. So what with the new community lots that I have added, I am also going to have to add these things. So the police station is built, and that is going to be owned by Dorian. So next day we're going to have this green after I played with it. The town hall is already up and running. So next we have the daily view, and that is going to be Daniel Lillard. And finally we have Goth Laboratories, and that's going to be owned by Alexander Goth. So moving on, we have first of all the clubs. So everyone who has a kid in either of these 2 clubs will have to pay 500 simoleons, and that is for the entire week. So the children will be children for, I think, 7 days in my aging system. And yeah, they will only have time for 1 week, basically, no matter when they are born. So they're going to pay 500 for that entire week, and it's going to be only the weekdays, so it's 100 simoleons per day, basically. And it's the same for both, but in this case, I'm going to have the children, or well, the parents of the children, that is, pay this fee to Nina. But for this fee, This is sort of part of the soccer field, and that is of course owned by Kennedy Cox. So I have decided to send 300 simoleons to Kennedy and then the remaining 200 to Ivy. I think that makes sense to do it that way. And then this is something that I have possibly planned for the future, but which isn't implemented yet. So we will have to see if I end up going with some sort of scouts. I will have to build another community lot for that to work, but yeah, a future issue. Yes, and we also have some hospital fees to take care of. So we had, in the beginning of the season, we had some Sims who were hospitalized and who also got prescribed medicine for the flu. And we also had some checkups for old age and pregnancy, as well as a physiotherapy session for back pain. So these Sims will have to pay those fees as well. And as you might have realized after the episodes have moved on, I have ever so slowly stopped keeping track of who is sick because I have sort of realized that it doesn't really matter, like if I write down who has got a flu, for example, in the beginning of the season, because when we arrive to the end of it, the people who were ill before are going to be cured, and a lot of people who were healthy previously are going to be sick. So it's not really accurate anymore, and it's pretty difficult to keep track of, actually. Yeah, so what I will do is actually to enter all of the families, and I will speed up time until 6 in the morning. And any sim who is still sick at the break of dawn is going to be counted as sick. And I bet you it's going to be flu because it appears that flu is surviving everything. Like, the list speaks for itself. At this point, we still had some colds and pneumonia and things like that. But yeah, after this point, it was just flu. So yeah, I probably don't need to infect people with the flu at all because I'm sure we're gonna have enough. But I'm going to follow this model as well with making Sims sick as well. So after I'm done with the payments, I'm going to move on to that. And yeah, that's everything. So it's basically the hospital fees as well as the clubs. So I'm just going to actually go household by household and yeah, speed up time to the start of day, or if they need to pay something, I need to wake up one of them and do that and then send them back to bed again. That kind of maintenance. So I'll be doing that and I'll be right back. Okay, so we have the first family that is going to need to pay a few fees, and that is the Day family. So Benjamin was actually hospitalized, so he owes quite a lot of money to the hospital. And he also has 2 children who are in clubs. So Matthew is in the soccer club and Mary is in the ballet club. So he's going to have to wake up and pay that as well. So I'm going to ask Benjamin to go up. Great. So let's see. So Benjamin needs to pay 800 simoleons. So I'm going to mark him as green because it's going to make the payment. And I'm not entirely sure how I want to handle the money, actually, because what I've done up until now is to send the money to Jennifer, but the hospital isn't really meant to be a profitable business, not in that way. I'm going to do it again this time, but I'm going to keep thinking about whether I want to donate the money instead so that no one gets them, or maybe send them to the town hall. I'm actually not sure because I don't really want to have a town budget like that, but maybe it could be used for something. Yeah. I'm sending it to Jennifer now anyway, and it will sit in her bank account if I want to do something else with it, possibly. So let's go ahead and send that to Jennifer. Right. And as you can see, oh no, the computer broke. Well, what I was going to say is that they don't really have enough money to pay both of the kids' fees. Now, Matthew is going to age up in 1 day, so they really due that money. But Mary is a little bit longer until she ages up, so I think that I'm going to wait with her and only pay for Matthew. But of course, now the computer broke. That's annoying. Yeah, I think I'm going to do this just so that I can get it. Oh no. Yeah, but I can remember what it was. Okay, it has lessened in value. I think it was this actually. But yeah, it's okay. Let's get this one instead. That's fine. Yeah. And now they can actually afford to pay both because they got a cheaper computer. Fine. So let's pay off the fee for both kids then. Yeah, he has nothing. That's good. Yeah, so to bank accounts 500. Let's start with the ballet club. And let's not break the computer this time, Benjamin. Oh, is it only the Sims that he knows? I guess he doesn't know Nina. Can't you send it to anyone? Huh. Okay then, let's let's get Nina here and get him to know her. Let's give her a high five then. Oh no. Can you not? Oh, of course. This is the issue with doing it in the middle of the night. Let's try to summon her again and see if that fixes it. Okay. Let's let the time run a little bit and see. Is she available now? Yes. Please hurry up and give her a high five. Cat, you are in the way. Well, okay, let's move this. Yeah, perfect. Sit on the top of that. Okay, good. High five. Okay, good. So let's clear her off and let's get rid of this. And let's try this again. So transmit money to bank accounts 500 simoleons. Oh no, did you wake up? Why? Go back to bed, please. I guess Nina awoke her. Alright, so let's see. Yeah, there she is. Good. So I'm going to mark that green as well, just so that I don't forget it. So Mary Day has paid her fee. Oh, we actually already had paid Matthew's fee. Cool. So I don't even have to do his. Nice. So they have some spare money left now then. So that's good. Yeah. And that was everything that they needed to pay. So let's send Benjamin back to bed. And yeah, since no one has shown any sign of illness, we're also safe. But I'm still going to speed up the time until 6 a.m. because if any of them ends up getting sick now after I randomize it, then I don't want them to spend time in the morning to sleep and then possibly recover before I have the time to actually have them be sick, if that makes sense. So I'm still going to do that. So this doesn't have anything to do with paying fees or illnesses, but as you might recall, Ivy did a try for baby with her boyfriend Ji-hoon in her episode, and yeah, look at this. she's pregnant. So yeah, Ivy is going to have a little child. And she's pretty old, actually. Only 7 days until she ages up. So it's going to be at the very end of her adult years. So let's hope everything goes well. And yeah, this is going to be pretty difficult for Hazel to melt, I think. But now, of course, she's going to take Jihun a lot more seriously. And I think that Ivy is definitely going to have to consider what she's going to do about her lingering feelings for Don as well. If she's going to be serious with Jihun, then yeah, what will happen with this romance? Yeah, so I'm going to send her back to bed and move on to the next family. All right, so we're with the Lillard family, and as you can see, both Tosha and Randy are sick. I don't know if that's going to stick until 6 a.m., but yeah, they already owe 1,300 in hospital bills because Randy was hospitalized and Tosha had the flu and had to get medicine. So they can't afford that right now. And what with their 2 young children and also their pet cats who will have kittens soon, they can't really afford to pay those bills. And if they're going to be sick and accumulate even more hospital bills, it's not going to be very good. So yeah, I'm fairly sure, seeing as Tosha is one of the Tellerman family, that yeah, Komei and Jan would definitely just pay that off in a heartbeat to help their kids. I mean, Brandon and Brandy would as well, but I think that yeah, the Tellermans would definitely be the first to just say that they would do it. So I'm going to have Jan or Komei go ahead and pay that for them. So Tosh and Randy don't have to worry about that right now. I think they have enough to worry about. So let's fast forward the time and see if they're still sick when the morning comes. Okay, so they're both healthy again. There's at least that. Yeah. So that's fine. They actually made it through. So this is just a little side note, but I think that you might be as happy as me to know that Daniel is kicked out of the bed and sent to the couch to sleep after what happened at the Tellerman party, what with flirting with Bella Goth in front of Mary Sue. So she is pretty angry with him. And she's kicked him out of the bedroom. Yeah, so this is where he's sleeping right now. So I'm with the Cox family, and this is another one of those families that are struggling with money. In this case, it's mostly because Kennedy owns that very unprofitable soccer field, and I haven't really gotten up to like how I need to improve the finances for that lot. So things are pretty stale money-wise right now for this family. They only have 400 simoleons, but on the other hand, Kennedy has received quite a lot of money already from the kids I have sent money to the soccer club. So unfortunately though, that does not mean that he has a lot of money on his account, because like that money that was sent from all of those people were sent to Kennedy's account. So what that did was actually pay off some of his loans because he has quite a lot of them. Yeah, I suppose he must have been up in like 27 or something. Yeah, so he's not going to have to pay Nathan and Amelia's fees to himself, but he's going to have to pay Ivy. So unfortunately, Kennedy, you're gonna have to loan some more money. Yeah, let's make it 500. Let's not go overboard. They still need some funds in like in their pockets. I don't want to remove all of their money, which is why I'm going to add on to the debt instead. And yeah, hopefully things will become a lot better in future for Kennedy's finances, but right now it's looking pretty bleak. Yeah. So he has quite a heavy debt, this guy. But yeah, so let's transmit money. And yeah, it's going to be 400. Nice. All right, so yep. So just let's send him back to bed. So I'm with the Strattons, and these guys don't have that much money either. Christy also has 3 daughters that she needs to pay for. So what I've decided to do is to only pay for Hallie's ballet classes for now, and wait a little bit with both Gloria and Lydia's classes, because they've only just grown up into children anyway. So I can afford to wait a little bit. They don't have to pay it at once, seeing as they're so young. So I'm going to just have Christy pay for Hallie, and then I'm gonna wait a little bit with the others. All right, so I've been diving into every household, and I've gotten the things done. So if we take a look again at the spreadsheet, starting with the clubs, I have had all the parents of the children pay, except for the Strattons. So I'm going to wait a little bit with Laura and Lydia, otherwise we're golden. Next, with the illnesses, we have some Sims who are sick, and of course it's the flu. So we have 8 in total. So yeah, moving on with the illness, I don't think that I'm going to have to infect anyone with flu, actually, at all. Looking at this as well, all the fees are paid. So we can go ahead and also add on to this list. So we have a pregnancy, as we noticed. So yeah, checkup, and it's going to be Ivy Cooper. And I think I'm gonna set the doctor on the day. So I had the fee 100, and week 4 Tuesday. This is going to be yellow because it's not done yet. It's not done yet. And these ones, I'm going to go ahead and hide like that. It says dölj on my one because I have it in Swedish, but it's the same as hide. So if I mark the first one and the most recent one, and then pick unhide, I think it's called in English, you will get all of it. So I have some here from Thursday as well. But those are done, so I'm going to hide those again. And then I continue with this. So I can actually also add on to the flus because yeah, because they're gonna have to get medicine, all of this. So let's do that. And what did I call it? Was it medication or something? Prescription. That sounds better. Great. And that was 500. Great. And yeah. So I only have the calculations left for the illnesses. So seeing as I don't have to do anything with the flu, and the cold, when I tried it out now, sure, they have the cold, but it disappears really, really quickly. And it seems like in most cases it actually turned into flu as well. That might have been my imagination, but it seemed like that to me. So I don't think that it's going to be very useful. So I think I'm gonna skip this whole section for cold and flu, and only move on to the pneumonia. But I'm gonna go through how I do this calculation as well if you want to try it yourself. So I'm actually going to have both of this one as well as the randomizer page open. So this is the page that I use. It's random.org. And if I would go with this part, the cold or flu, I would start with, well, I would go by age group. So you have teen, young adult, adult, and elder. And the percentage chance to get sick is going to get worse and worse the older you are, basically. So it takes quite a lot for a teen to get ill. And for young adults, it's a little bit easier. And then moving down to elder, it's pretty easy. So for these illnesses, I have every sim. And looking at pneumonia, I have every 10th sim. So it's more difficult to get this illness, but it's also a more serious illness that will hospitalize you. So I don't want everyone to have it. So that's why. So if I would go ahead with the cold or flu, I would start with teen, and it would be every sim. So I would go into my family tab and I would sort by age. So I'm going to pick out teen. And here we can see that I have in total right now 17 sims. So yeah, I'm gonna set this number to 17 because I want 17 results. And looking at the illness tab, it's 1% chance. So that means that it's going to be between 1 and 100, the way it looks right now. If it would be the young adult, it would be 2% chance, so that would be between 1 and 50. Adult would be between 1 and 20, and elder would be between 1 and 10. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and just show you what happens. I'm not going to use it, but yeah, get numbers. So what I'm looking for here is number 1, because it's just one number in all of these numbers that is going to cause an illness for teens, and there's no number 1 here, so none of the teens would have gotten ill. But let's say that I would have rolled for the elders, so that would have been between 1 and 10. And here you can see that we have at least, yeah, we have 1 who got sick. And then I would count like this. So this is number 10 going this way. And then I would go back to my spreadsheet and sort by elder. And then I would see who is number 10 on here. Oh, okay, it was Mary Sue Pleasant. So Mary Sue would have gotten ill if that would have been the case. But I'm going to move on to pneumonia and stick to that. So this is a little bit different. So this is every 10th sim. So I'm not going to take every sim into consideration as I do with these ones. So what I do first is that I check if I do have 10 sims to work with in the first place. So going back to teens. We saw that we had 17. So we don't have 20. So there won't be the possibility of 2 sims, but we will only have 1 sim who can get sick. So I'm going to randomize this between 1 and 17. I want to get 1 result. Get numbers. So number 5. So the sim who is number 5 in the list, and that is Nero Caliente. So Nero is going to have a chance to get ill. And how high is the chance? 1%. So I need to do this by 100, and the result needs to be 1 if he's going to get sick. And it wasn't. It was 92, so Nero is not going to be sick. And then I move on to the next, so that's going to be young adults. So every 10th sim, changing to young adult. And here you can see that we only have in total 5 sims. So we don't have 10 sims to work with. And in those cases, I just skip by them. There's no chance that they will get sick if they are so few. So that's how I do that. So I'm going to skip on to adult. And here we're going to have a lot more sims to work with. So every 10 sim. So going back. So let's see. So we have 57 sims in total. And in 57, we have 5 tens in total. So we're going to need 5 results. And get numbers. Okay, so we have number 39 to start with. Okay, so the first one who has the potential to get sick is Kaylin Langerak. I'm going to copy her name and I'm just going to take up a notepad temporarily. Like that, and put her name in. Next one is number 44. And that is Don Lothario. All right. Next is number 50. Angela Pleasant. All right. Very classical sims here. 14. Iris Cooper. All right. And lastly, 47. Okay, Jessica Miguel. All right, so we have the sims who can get ill, and then they have 5% chance. So we're gonna have, again, 5 results, and yes, 5% chance is 20. So we're looking for ones again. And there were no ones. So these sims did not get ill. So they're safe. So I can close this out again. I'm just going to keep it for the elders too. So as you can see, the elders are every sim. So no escapes. So let's see who we have. All right. So in total, we have 13. So I'm going to need 13 numbers. And it was 10. Oh, it was 5 again, actually. Yeah, I guess I thought that 10 was a bit high for this. Maybe. Yeah, because it would have been the same as cold or flu. Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm gonna keep this and I'm gonna get numbers. Wow, no ones. All of this calculation and no illnesses. Interesting how that can happen. But as you can see, if we would have counted 20 instead, the highest number, we would have had 3. So it really is by chance. Luckily, they all escaped by now, so we're not going to have any illnesses. Well, we're going to have lots of flu, but we're not going to have any hospitalizations. So that's good. That's... I don't know if it's good or bad. It's fun to play with the hospitalization as well, because it adds a little bit of chaos into all of the order that I have. But of course, it's a lot easier when they're not away at the hospital and away from gameplay. So yeah. So looking at this then, we're not going to have any hospitalizations at all. We're just going to have a bunch of flu things. So I bet that they're going to take turns and just hand out the medicine, and we're going to have, the people in the lab are going to have a hard time to catch up, I think, on making those. Right. So something that we did not have the chance to see now then, that we don't have any elders who got pneumonia, is that I didn't have to make a choice whether I would put them in the hospital or in the nursing home. Because when an elder gets that sick, I think it stands to reason that after they've been at the hospital, they would go to the nursing home if they're not like completely cured. And the chance of being completely cured after a very serious illness in your old age is, the chance is pretty low, I think, to get back to your old life. So yeah, but that didn't happen. So I don't think I'm going to add anyone to the nursing home, actually. I'm just going to keep it as it is right now and see what happens the next day, that is. All right, so that's all the preparation for the hospital, and I made all the necessary payments. I also took the time to purchase the community lots, the new ones, for The Sims. So Dorian owns the police station, Danielle owns the Daily View, and Alexander owns Goth Laboratories. So I'm gonna have to add on to my spreadsheet for that as well. So law enforcement I already have. So this does not need to be adjusted. But I will have to add on, the Daily View and the Science Lab. But I think I'm gonna have to think a little bit about how I want to do that. I did go ahead though and add a new career level to Danielle. Yeah, there she is. So instead of a fact checker, she's now a magazine editor. That was the best one I could find to suit the description that I was after, because there was like sports columnists and things like that, like obviously reporters, but I wanted her to be an editor, and that was the only one that was available. So it's actually at level 9, so it's pretty high. But I mean, yeah, she's going to be the editor, so why not, right? So yeah. But looking at the journalism career, we only have her and Lucy right now. So yeah, I might have to think about if I want to change someone's job or not to that. I think it's going to be a lot easier for the science career, because there are a lot of Sims in that, as well as natural science, actually. We have, Benjamin Day and Lily Doe there as well. But I mean, yeah, look at all this. Not all of them can work at the hospital, right? So I think for sure that Alvin Stratton and Iris Cooper definitely wants to work with Alexander. Cassandra's going to be the science teacher still, though. And yeah, Daphne is still a teen. Yeah. So I might look into what I can come up with for the natural science career, because I did add in quite a lot of plants, and it would be nice to have them tend those, I think. I'll have to see how to work with it, but yeah, it's fun to start up that as well and try to figure out how to do things. It's fun for me anyway. All right, so I think that all of the maintenance is done and over with. So what remains for this episode is just to go through what you can expect for season 2. So, well, first of all, we are completely done now with all of the character introductions. We don't have to spend a lot of time anymore to get to know a Sim's personality and their backstory and their relationships, things like that. That's all done. You have a pretty clear view, I think, now of all of the characters. So I think that we can get into like the meat of the story in this Let's Play series. And I want to make this series pretty story heavy. And I want to try to focus on sort of like short stories, one could say, in season 2. And those short stories are meant to build up towards season 3. And season 3 is more like I envision like one continuous plot line. And I already have it in my head, so I know what I'm going to work towards. So I have a lot of stuff that needs to happen to get to the starting position of season 3, that story. And I think that the short stories are going to be sort of a soft start for me to get into the style, because I've never seen anyone do anything like that before. So I don't really have someone to copy or someone to to take inspiration from. So yeah, it's going to be something like, well, for example, one plot line could be continuing on with Goopy's restaurant and what will happen with his and Malcolm Landgrab's partnership, what with the restaurant needs to make a lot of money for Malcolm's investment to pay off. And we also have Gordon King next to the restaurant in his dry cleaners, and something might happen between those two. That could be a possible plot line or like short story in this neighborhood that I could follow. And it would be possible to follow several families at once, but not every family. I think that that is very important moving forward, that I don't continue to just go through round after round after round with the same families, because like I mentioned, there are, I think I said 37 of them. I think it would get very tedious very quickly for all of us, and not to mention any new viewers, like where would they even begin to watch? It would be a lot of content to get through to get to where we are right now, I think. So we will still have the first season to go back to and catch up on the backstory, but I think that it would be nice to have these little short stories that you could watch in like continuous session, like one after one, or you could watch them like part 1, part 2, part 3 of that little short story, if you wanted to. And yeah, I'm gonna try that out. I also want to move this Let's Play a little bit more towards a scripted sort of story. I look at the Sims videos a little bit like on a sliding scale. On one hand, you have this very, very rule-based and restricted gameplay that's almost like hands-off. Like imagine that you could just sit back and watch the AI play the game for you. That kind of like extreme is in one side. Like it takes away all of the control from the player. And then on the other side, you have the thing that is giving the player complete control of everything, and that is the machinima, where you can script everything and you are in perfect control of every scene, every little detail. And I think that I've been pretty much in the middle of that, because I've had a little bit of both. But I think I want to push it a little bit more towards the machinima side. And what I mean with that is partly that I want to make it a little more like storyline based, but also that I want to incorporate something that's already in the game, really, and that is cutscenes. Cutscenes are pretty amazing, and they lets you view your sim in a very special way. You can connect more with the sim because you get a very personal view of that sim doing something big in their life. And the issue though is that it's the same scene every time. And by now, I think that most of us have seen them all many, many times before. And it's not going to surprise you anymore what happens. And often we also have like issues with the scenery around the sim cutting into the show, so you can't really see what's happening often. So I want to bring in a little bit of what I learned creating my Christmas machinima, The Vicious, and add in my own custom cutscenes. And I don't think I'm going to do it a whole lot, but I think that in moments like when I have a very special and important conversation between some characters or something very specific happening that is difficult for me to portray to you in just speech, and I want to like allow you to travel into my head and see through my eyes what's going on. That kind of situation, I think it would be really, really nice to be able to portray it with the help of a short machinima clip, sort of. And it's going to be completely experimental and a lot of fun, I think. But just as a disclaimer, since this is going to be, as I said, experimental, and I don't really have anyone to look at for inspiration, it's going to take a lot of time, I think, to figure out how to do things. So just bear with me while I figure things out. And yeah, I hope that things will get really, really interesting moving forward. And I, of course, have my own storylines in mind, what I want to do, specific characters whose stories I want to follow and show you. But I would really, really love it if you gave me like your opinions on what characters you want to see moving forward, because we have all of these characters. I think I said 75 characters in this hood, and it's going to be impossible for me to continuously show you everyone. So if you would let me know who your favorites are, or if there is like some specific storyline that you really want to know about and follow more, then that would help me to know what I should incorporate into the videos. It might not be that it suits the story to follow that character or a family completely, but they could be featured in an episode, or they could be like helping the story along in some way. So that would be really, really helpful to me. So please let me know what you think. And yeah, I hope that this is going to work out the way I want. We'll have to see. I'm really, really hopeful and excited as well to start with it. I've been excited because I've had this idea for months now. And yeah, I'm really, really excited to get started with it finally. So yeah, that wraps up season 1 completely. There's nothing left now to do except move on to season 2. So thank you so much once again for following me through this, and for encouraging me with your kind comments, and for just being so lovely to me starting out this series and my channel as well with this series. And yeah, it's been a really fun ride, and I'm excited to continue on. And with that concludes this episode. So thank you so much for watching, and happy Easter. Take care. Bye.